o kasabot sa akong gibati. Di parang di ko makatuo nga gahimo ginagawa gyud sa anak ko ba nga nga hitabo.
Kung pwede ko palang ipadama sa imong misis kung ano kasakit. Pero hindi ko gid na kaya himuon. Kaya nga naman, sanod sa akong anak, ang ako na lang pod. Amo lang gid na ang akong ginangyo sa imo. Ikaw naman lang gid ang pwede nga maghangyo sa iya nga isumbong na lang niya mismo.
When Cruz Maguad hurried home on December 10th, 2021, he feared the worst. His adopted daughter sounded really worried. 3 masked attackers had barged into their home, and she was alone with her 2 adoptive siblings. Sadly, Cruz was right in being worried, but he didn't make it home in time. His 2 children were gone, left in an indescribable state in the living room, and his adopted daughter was in a state of shock, unable to properly describe what had happened. But shock was not the real reason Janice couldn't describe the incident. In fact, Janice harbored a dark secret. Her terrifying story sent shockwaves through the Philippines. Then, it reached the whole world. How could an innocent girl with a tragic story like Janice end up a vile monster? This is the full story of Janice Maguad, the orphan girl who unalived her adoptive siblings. It all began in September 2013 when a woman found an 8-year-old girl alone on a ship. The woman asked the girl where her parents were, but the girl said she had no parents or memories prior to that day. She only knew her name, Janice Cibao. Worried, the woman took this picture of the girl and posted it online, urging her parents to reach out and take her home. But no one contacted the woman, so Janice was declared an orphan and put in the custody of the Department of Social Welfare. When Janice was a teenager, a couple with 2 young children hired her as a live-in nanny. This couple was close friends with another family, the Maguads. When she was 17, Janice accompanied the couple to multiple events, and so she met Gwen Maguad. She was 1 year older, and along with her brother Louis, who was 16, was the biological child of Cruz and Lavella Maguad. Gwen and Janice became best friends almost overnight. They often posted videos dancing together on TikTok and quickly became attached at the hip. Both siblings were kind and ambitious well beyond their ages. Louise made music and was studying to become a lawyer, and his sister was in pre-med prep school. But no matter how hardworking the siblings were, they always had time to goof around with Janice. There was something that Gwen and Louis didn't understand though. Why wasn't Janice in school? When they asked her, Janice reportedly became visibly sad. She was an orphan, and she had no memories before the age of 8. She complained about working almost day and night, looking after 2 young children, and keeping the family's house together, barely making ends meet. Not long after learning this, the siblings sat their parents down and pleaded with them to adopt Janice. Sure, she was almost 18, but she needed a family and the financial stability to pursue an education. The Maguads were skeptical. They didn't earn that much. Cruz was a teacher and Lavelle a head teacher. They didn't even have an extra bedroom. To this, Gwen said she would be happy to give her bedroom to Janice and take the sofa. This was how kind the siblings were. They wanted to help Janice more than anything. You guys remember this, as it will make the story really tragic. In July 2021, the Maguads officially adopted Janice. They enrolled her in school and she took their last name. Just 5 months later though, the worst would happen. It was 2:48 p.m. on December 10th, 2021, and Janice was hiding under her bed. She could hear 3 men inside her home destroying objects and terrorizing her siblings. She felt helpless and desperate to get some help. She couldn't call her parents or the emergency services though. If she made even the slightest noise, the men would know there was a 3rd person in the house. For now, she was safe. So, she decided to text her parents, but they did not see their messages. They were at work, and their work was at school. At school, you hardly have time to make yourself a coffee or run to the restroom, let alone check your phone. As she waited, Janice got more frantic. She knew she had to act quickly if she was to save her siblings' lives. In one last desperate attempt, Janice took to Facebook. At 3 p.m., 12 minutes after texting her parents, she wrote that someone had broken into her home home and she needed urgent help. "Help me, guys, help me please. Someone entered the house. I don't want to die yet. I am inside the room hiding. Help." One of Cruz's work colleagues saw Janice's posts and told him. Cruz knew he had to get home, ASAP. Cruz walked to the front door, but it was locked. Then he went to the back door and kicked it open. He called for his children over and over again, but there was no answer. Within seconds, he saw what no parent should see. Gwen and Louis had been unalived in a manner so brutal, it can hardly be described here. Every surface in the living room was covered in red and broken glass. Cruz was already going through hell, but he was still hoping his adopted daughter was alive. When he called her name, she responded. He felt enormous relief when he hugged her, but he thought it was odd that her hair was fully wet. Janice told her father she hid under the bed throughout the entire incident, but once the men were gone, she took a shower. This was strange in many ways. For anyone who's seen Psycho, or anyone really, it's obvious you're at your most vulnerable when showering. You're defenseless, everything is slippery, and you're stuck in a corner with nowhere to run or hide. Why would Janice choose to take a shower after hearing or even seeing her siblings get murdered? Cruz thought Janice was in a state of shock. People do strange things when in shock, so he chose not to think too much about it. That morning, Janice had called Cruz and Lavella dad and mom for the first time. They were over the moon. They told all their colleagues at school about it. Now Janice was their only surviving child, and their biological children had died in agony. They couldn't shake it off. The authorities couldn't either. When they arrived at the scene, they noted that whoever had taken the siblings' lives had deep hatred towards them. This was a frenzied attack. Gwen was missing an ear. Most of the injuries were to her face. None of them were lethal. The detectives noted that jabs like these are usually meant to humiliate, and usually the motive is jealousy. Both siblings had been unalived with a hammer, baseball, and kitchen knife. Since the only witness was Janice, the officers wanted to speak to her and get a clear account of what had happened. But of course, she was hiding under the bed for most of the time, so she couldn't tell much. The authorities put out a reward for information leading to the suspect's arrest. 3 masked men, according to Janice, but at the same time, the detectives also looked into Janice's statements and her past. Some of her stories simply did not add up. First of all, why would 3 men barge into the house, unalive Gwen and Louis, and then leave without any cash or valuables? Also, all of the weapons were owned by the family. The hammer was in the laundry area, well hidden by Cruz. The same went for the baseball bat. It was Louis, kept safely in the wardrobe in his bedroom. How would 3 strangers know where to find these objects? There was something else. Remember how Janice posted her help message on Facebook? She had used 3 crying emojis at the end. Who takes the time to add emojis in a life or death situation? The detectives also spoke to the Maguads about Janice and how things had been between them since her adoption. Cruz confessed that Janice did not adapt right away. In fact, one time she had stolen $200 from them. While the family was frantically looking for the cash, Louis discovered that Janice's backpack had a secret compartment. She had sewn it in for the precise purpose of hoarding stolen cash. When confronted with it, Janice broke down and apologized. Cruz and Lavella were surprisingly understanding and forgiving. As teachers, they knew children from rough backgrounds take a while to adapt to safe environments. They can still believe that they need to steal money or food to survive, even when that is no longer the case. Children who never felt soothed and cared for often feel the need to provide for themselves. The Maguads were prepared to take it step by step with Janice. But as the detectives looked through Janice's early life, they discovered her orphan story was one big lie. Indeed, Janice had 2 very much alive parents, Michelle and Juanita Ceballo. She also had 3 siblings. This was big. Imagine the shockwaves this news sent through the Philippines after Gwen and Louise' siblings. So reporters found Michelle and she agreed to an interview. There she confessed that her ex-husband Juanito spent all day gambling and drinking. They lived in a poor village and survived on scraps and spoiled food, much thanks to the deadbeat father.
Lalit lisod about anong lisod kayo nga ano ba, di mo jud kumulakaw nga time ato kung okay lang yung amahan. pamahaw kamuti. Paniudto, magsag-unsa lang kamuting kahoy o saging kahoy kaon lang kanin saging bunsalo bunsalo lang daot na saging ba kay para lang naay masulod sa tiyan.
Eventually, Michelle left Juanito and her children. She went to Manila and found work as a housekeeper.
Usay manghuram na lang kog bugas kay maluoy ko sa mga anak nga di makakaog bugas sa kadlaw.
Janice was left with her dad. However, it remains unclear whether Juanito abandoned his daughter that day in September or if she ran away on her own. But Janice did not abandon her family completely. Law enforcement found an ongoing chat on Facebook between Janice and her mother. From the messages, it seemed like her mother was happy Janice was now being taken care of. She didn't believe she could provide for her daughter, and she never made any attempt to reconnect with her beyond Facebook. This was far from Janice's story. Lost from home with no recollection of her childhood, it was a sob story, all right, just not the one she'd been telling. So the question remained, was she involved in the deaths of Gwen and Louis? A few days after the incident, authorities obtained a warrant to search the house. Janice had gone from witness to suspect. An autopsy report confirmed that the siblings passed away around 2 p.m. on December 10th. So why did Janice wait 48 minutes to text her parents? Also, those 3 emojis on Facebook were not all. Minutes later, she also changed her Facebook name from Janice Maguad to JP. Was this an extremely lame attempt at disguising her identity? As if the authorities couldn't track the profile down. Also, Janice said that she locked the door to her room and hid under the bed until she thought the men were gone. But the room had been ransacked, and there were drops of red all over the ground. If the room was locked, how did the attackers get inside? And how come they didn't notice Janice? So a forensics team came to the house again and searched every corner, including the big land around the house. A few feet from the home, in a creek, the forensics team found a trash bag. Inside were red-stained clothes. They were pretty certain the clothes belonged to the attacker. They had attempted to throw the bag in the creek and let the water carry it away, but the bag had gotten stuck in a branch and was just swaying in the water. The detectives left with the evidence and told the Magwads they were now free to clean the house and, well, sell it or do whatever they saw fit with it. Lavella was quick to start cleaning the house in an attempt to sell it ASAP. That's when she noticed a strange ID in Janice's room. It belonged to a 17-year-old boy named Marlon. Well, Marlon was the nickname given to him by the media. He has not been officially identified, as he was a minor at that time. Lavella rushed with Marlon's ID to the detectives. That's when they connected the dots. A few eyewitnesses from December 10th had come forward to describe this boy. They'd seen Marlon heading to the Magwad's home. A store owner also testified that Marlon had come into his store that day and asked which house belonged to the Magwad family. And a motorcycle driver said he drove Marlon to that house that day. Marlon was the new suspect, but his ID had been found in Janice's room, so she was not crossed off the suspect list. She was, at the very least, covering for this boy. But why? Janice was brought to the station for an official questioning. The minute she saw Marlon's ID, she broke down and confessed. She said, "I had something to do with the murders." To this day, it's unclear how Janice met Marlon and what their relationship was. Marlon was the same age as her, and she worked at a local church. Some people speculated that they were dating, but in December 2021, Janice had several pictures of herself and another boy on Facebook, and she referred to him as her boyfriend. When the detectives looked through their conversation, they found out that they had been planning to off the siblings since December 1st, for 10 days. Their chat revealed something else: Janice's intense hatred for Gwen. Yep, this was the girl who appeared smiling and dancing in Gwen's TikTok videos. Janice told investigators that she unalived Gwen out of jealousy because Cruz and Lavella showered her with love. However, she never explained why she decided to take Louis' life as well. The detectives also questioned Janice's then boyfriend. He was not a suspect, but he revealed an interesting clue. On December 10th, he saw Janice's Facebook post, so he called her. She picked up. Yep, she picked up, even though she claimed there were intruders in her house. But she didn't say anything. Her boyfriend listened to the complete silence for a few seconds, and then he decided to hang up. He figured there were no intruders. Why would there be absolute silence on the other end? He thought his girlfriend was probably playing some dumb prank or was being dramatic. While it's questionable that the boyfriend didn't think to call the police or come to Janice's help, the detectives wondered if this was maybe a clue into Janice's behavior. Perhaps her boyfriend knew she had an aptitude for lying. Marlon was arrested shortly after Janice's confession. He still had Gwen's phone on him, a bit of evidence that would secure his sentence. Both teens were charged with first-degree murder and sent to a juvenile facility without bail. Once Janice arrived at the facility, the other children there felt so disturbed by her that they requested that she be sent somewhere else. Janice became an internet sensation worldwide, associated with the evil girl in the 2009 Orphan movie. But Janice was not an orphan. She lied about her childhood and her amnesia. She was in touch with her mother all along. That doesn't mean she is all evil, though. Unlike the orphan protagonist, Janice lived in extreme poverty and neglect, and even faced famine. It's almost irrelevant if she ran away from home or if she was abandoned. She was 8. What she'd been through is hard to fathom for most of us, and it's undoubtedly traumatized her in ways that we cannot understand. The running theory, according to detectives, is this: Janice didn't plan on unaliving the Maguad family from the get-go. When she met Louise and Gwen, she genuinely wanted their friendship. When the Maguads adopted her, she was over the moon. However, it was her growing sense of safety and closure to her family that sent her into a state of rage and frustration. She began to hate how perfect Gwen was. She was smart, beautiful, ambitious, and very much loved by her parents. In short, Gwen was everything she wasn't. She felt unloved and abandoned by her own family. No new family would undo that core feeling. Also, she felt she never had the chance to be as smart or as pretty as Gwen. It's different when you can't afford clothes, food, or an education. You can only get so far. Reportedly, Janice was also angry at all the house chores the Maguads were making her do. Cruz and Lavella wanted their kids to grow into responsible, disciplined adults who knew the value of work and money. Janice saw the Maguads as much richer than they actually were, just by comparing them to her own family. So she expected them to provide for her and free her from all kinds of work. Janice's frustration turned to hatred and jealousy. One day, she became a real-life monster. Lavella said, "We were so proud when he adopted Janice because we thought God was using us to help this young girl. It was a blessing, but then this is what we get." In the last days of 2021, Lavella and Cruz met with Michelle, Janice's biological mother.
Sorry po. Hindi naman good. Hindi ka naman good.
O kasabot sa akong gibati. Di parang di ko makatuo nga gahimo ginagawa gyud sa anak ko ba nga hitabo. Sakit eh.
Cruz and Lavella told her they don't hold her responsible for her daughter's deeds.
Thank you gid sa inyo pag-adto.
However, Lavella said Michelle might be the only person who could understand Janice's motive.
Pwede ko pa lang gid ipadama sa imong misis kung ano kasakit. Pero hindi ko gid na kaya himuon. Kay nga naman sa akong anak, ang ako na lang pod. Amo lang gid na ang akong ginangyo sa imo. Ikaw naman lang gid ang pwede nga maghangyo sa iya, nga isumbong na lang niya.
In court, the Maguads met with Janice one last time. Her eyes were cold and empty. She expressed no remorse or apology to her adoptive family. She also confessed that as she was being killed, Gwen told Janice, "I don't know what I did to you. I love you." If you thought this case couldn't get any more heartbreaking. Janice and Marlon were tried separately but received equal sentences. 32 years in prison without the possibility of parole. They will be 50 years old when they are released. Unlike Gwen and Louis, they will still have a long life ahead of them. In August 2022, the couple opened a restaurant in honor of their lost children, servicing their favorite dishes. They are going to therapy and using their new business venture to remember Gwen and Louis every day. While Gwen and Louis will be honored by thousands, Janice and Marlon will be forgotten in a tiny prison cell. Hey, thanks for watching. What do you think about this case? Do you know of other cases of killer orphans or adopted children? Let me know in the comments, and before you leave, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. See you next time!